So much for tech. Welcome to the First Universalist Church of Rochester, where we are called to nurture the spirit and serve the community. I'm Kitty Forbush, she, her, and leading worship with me today are Patti Goodwin, she, her, Brock Tischvold, he, him for our music, McCormick Chu, he, him providing tech support, and Karen Labraco, she, her, for our online ministry team. If you are here for the first time this morning, we especially welcome you. Thank you for making it to this worshiping community. We have a visitors form that can be found in the chat for our folks online and can be accessed by scanning a QR code in your pews or on the back of your order of service. Please fill out the form so we can offer you a welcome beyond this worship service. Before we take a moment to turn to our neighbor, let us take a moment to turn towards the camera and to greet our online worshiping community. Please offer a wave. If you are online, please pop into the chat to offer a greeting. And if you are here at First Universalist, let us take a moment to turn to our neighbor this morning and offer a greeting. Let us sing together now. I know this is hard. Like we say, it's like herding cats. Let us sing together our opening hymn, number 1020, in your teal hymnal, Wo Ya Ya.
Losers by John Corrado. In a culture that worships winners, some people say the church is a place for losers. And they are right. This is a place for people who have lost their hair, lost their teeth, lost their place, lost their memories, lost their savings, lost their jobs. It's a place for people who have lost their parents, lost the love of their life, and even lost their children. It's a place for people who have lost their way, lost their faith, and worst of all, lost their hope. The church is a place for losers, us. Let's see who we are and who we are, and how much we need and can help one another. We are the losers, and in the words of Tiny Tim, God bless us everyone. We all have our losses, but we have each other to get through them. Come. Let us all worship together. As Dwight Montague lights our chalice at First Universalist Church, and you light a candle in your own homes, will you join me in saying our chalice lighting words in unison? May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart and mind and spirit, and may we reach out to serve our community. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in our affirmation of faith, followed by our doxology. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all.
Oh, boy. Hi. This is called Song for the Unsung by Steve J. Crump. You make the coffee, set up the tables, and organize the cleaning when the rest of us have gone home. You know where the brooms and the supplies are kept. You run to the store in the nick of time. You find the great stuff to sell at the fundraiser. You remember to use I language. You speak passionately with a clear voice and listen with open-mindedness. You consider your tone when you speak. You say you want to be part of the solution, part of the healing, by hanging in there. You come up with new ideas. You gracefully accept the group choosing someone else's idea. You step up to make the extra contribution. You make welcoming room for others. You acknowledge children and are happy to be around them. You hold a child, hold a confidence, and hold a hand. You go the extra mile, contribute the extra dollar, and give the benefit of doubt. You know that church life is all about relationships, and because you know this, your spiritual discipline of forgiveness is always at hand. You, with your presence alone, offer a holy companionship. You accompany others in their dark night of the soul. You do what you do because you can. You often wish you could do more. You labor not for praise or for a song, but for the good in the doing of work. But we sing this song of praise for you, the unsung in our church. And our hearts are glad in the singing because we know the many things you do. We appreciate you very much. Our offering today goes to this, our wonderful church.
invite you into this reverent time of sharing joys and sorrows of our gathered community. If you would like to, you can place your hand over your heart to be able to listen from this heart-centered place. As we place stones into a bowl, I will read aloud the joys and sorrows of our gathered community. All online are also invited to share their joys and sorrows in the chat. From Kitty Forbush, sorrow. Please pray for my friend Eric, who was paralyzed from the neck down in a freak swimming accident. His wife, Audrey, is 7 months pregnant with their first baby. She is my nurse co-worker at Pluto. Another sorrow from Kitty. Send prayers to First Unitarian Church in Plano, Texas, that was firebombed after being trolled by LGBTQT hate group on YouTube. From Howard, a joy. My friends Evelyn and Andy will play a beautiful chamber music concert here in the sanctuary every Friday at 7 p.m. I'm glad we're hosting some great music this summer.
This Friday, not every Friday.
Oh. Okay, this Friday. I was really thinking every. Oh, I forgot. I thought they were going to do a repeat. You know, it's summertime. We're airing programs. Okay.
You're just listening so.
On the screen, you will see the joys and sorrows of our online community, so we can share their things too. And we drop one final stone into the bowl to represent all the joys and sorrows left unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. May all be held in the heart of love. How will you use your gifts? By Don Southworth. One of the first things I saw on my first day of seminary at Star King School for the Ministry in August of 1996 was the official school t-shirt. On the front of the shirt was a beautiful drawing of a sand dollar. I discovered the importance and meaning of the sand dollar later that morning during our opening worship service. Rebecca Parker, the president of Star King, spoke poetically and movingly about the sand dollar's history at the school and its symbolism for our time there. For decades, incoming students have been given a sand dollar as a welcome gift in the ritual to honor the gifts we brought to the school and to represent the grace and ministry of our vocation to ministry. We were each invited to choose a sand dollar to take with us on our journeys. With tears in my eyes, I prayerfully selected the sand dollar that I knew would be the perfect companion on my road to ministry. When I returned to my seat, and as I lovingly fondled it, my precious sand dollar shattered into several pieces and soon was nothing but sand dollar dust. I realized that this probably wasn't a good omen for my future, so I snuck back to the basket to take another one. Certain that nobody had seen me, I slunk back to my seat and gently placed the new sand dollar in my pocket. 15 minutes later, when I went to touch my sacred sand dollar, I discovered it too was in pieces. Convinced that the gods were telling me something about my choice to pursue the ministry, I quietly dumped my sand dollar dust into the garbage and wondered if seminary was the right place for me. Fortunately, the t-shirt on the wall had writing on the back of it as well. It said, "How will you use your gifts?" Since sand dollars did not seem to be my thing, I hoped I could do a better job with that question. On that day, that question became one of the guiding lights of my life and ministry. How will you use your gifts? I have been blessed to be surrounded by faculty, friends, family, colleagues, and congregations committed to living that question with me. It is a question with the power to transform the world. How will you use your gifts? Imagine what would happen if every one of us committed to fully living out the answer to that question and helping others to do the same. Imagine if every person in the world overcame their doubts, fears, and oppressions and shared all their gifts. We have the power to change and heal the world when we use our gifts to bless the world. And what a better place to practice than in our religious communities, where we are encouraged to bring our unique talents, skills, passions, and dreams, and share them as widely as we can, even on those days when we feel as imperfect as a broken sand dollar. You and I are miracles, my friends. We are packages of gifts that have never been seen before in the history of the world and will never be seen again. Our potential, our greatness lie in how well we open our packages, our lives, and share them with other people. To paraphrase the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., everyone can be great because everyone can share their gifts with the world. You don't need a Master of Divinity degree to share your gifts. This one's close to me. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to share your gifts with the world. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love, and maybe a pocket full of sand dollar dust. We will now sing our hymn of contemplation, "We Are Building a New Way," number 1017 in the Teal hymnal. annoyance. Upon entering the convention center, I was greeted by Ask Me people. People in Ask Me t-shirts were stationed around the entire conference facility. They were GA volunteers to assist comfort goers. That was a great help. I hope that is repeated in the future. I gained a lay of the land, so to speak, by arriving early and asking questions. I had my scooter, so I was scoping out places near outlets in case I needed a charge up. Connecting with familiar faces from church was nice. A group of us got together for dinner one night. I had printed out the catalog of the conference before coming, so I was able to review it again quietly in my room to decide if I was still interested in the same workshops. First stop was the orientation workshop, which was chock full of useful information. I was scheduled to go to all the delegate business meetings, which were also open to everyone. I could have signed up to speak for or against a proposal. Because I had no strong feelings to voice either way, I decided to listen to the arguments delivered to see if my decisions had changed from the points presented before I had to vote. There was one delegates-only online meeting. Many of the delegates had the same idea about attending that one, which was to stay in the conference center, plug in our earbuds, sit at a table in the reception area, and listen. It was kind of entertaining to see us all doing the same thing. Some of us were muttering as well about what was being said. Count me in as a mutterer. Business meetings take up a lot of hours. I found myself listening carefully to everything being said. Being a delegate helped me focus more on content than if I were only an attendee. I did not let my mind or eyes wander. I did, however, need to leave the business meeting space to plug in my scooter and to warm up my body. The convention center was freezing for me, though I wore a heavy jacket. Fortunately, I could also tune in live from my app on my phone, which I did. I missed voting on one choice prior to getting back to my hotel room. My intention was to vote back in my room. Once I sat down to vote, I discovered it had ended 15 minutes prior. After that, I made sure to vote before I left the convention center. If I were to go to another conference as a delegate, I would make some changes in my approach. I would go into it knowing that there is a substantial amount of reading and discussion groups online to participate in prior to attending the conference. I had difficulty remembering to go to them. Business items are good church discussion topics. I hope that our church offers them up next time with the church vote for consensus purposes. This would enable the delegates to better represent the church body. Had it not been for scholarship assistance from UUA, I would not have been able to attend. It covered half my registration fees and half my hotel fees. I found a roommate through UUA, which was great. I met another grandma who was a very interesting woman. I plan to keep in touch with her. I will attend another GA. If I can't attend live, I will go online now that I have discovered the quality of the broadcast. All doubts have been removed regarding that. At other times, I have not liked live online events. GA changed my view on that. The few I attended away from the building were excellent, plus I was able to not miss Sunday events. I could listen to them through my car speakers while driving home. That allowed me to leave early for my journey and to arrive home before dark. There were not as many workshops as in the past, plus everything started later to accommodate other time zones. Though there were fewer exhibitors than I have experienced in the past, I still managed to keep going back to find new things to look at. Bye. I was able to engage in meaningful conversations with several exhibitors as well. Something that was reinforced once again for me is that bookstores are still very bad for my budget.
Okay. I'm going to tell you a few things from my point of view, and then I'll read about Michael Scott's point of view. I was not a delegate, so it was kind of a different experience. When I saw the notices about 9 months ago, I was very excited because I grew up in Pittsburgh, so this was my hometown. So I did not want to be in business meetings while I saw old friends and old haunts. So a few thoughts. Pittsburgh is amazing. If you drive from the north or from the west, it's all these wooded hills, and all of a sudden, Pittsburgh springs out in front of you with all its glory in just like 2 miles. It's just astounding. So it's beautiful to see Pittsburgh again. I was a bit surprised about the cost. Our cost of living in Rochester is not what it is in Pittsburgh, about 25% more, which I wasn't quite ready for. I think overall there were about 2,300 delegates. So they weren't all there in person. Many of them were online, but then there were people like me who weren't delegates, so there were at least over 2,000 people on site. The Pittsburgh Convention Center was wonderful in terms of arrangements and settings for us. I love seeing our banner arrive, carried by Emma in the parade. They had the River City Brass Band bring in the whole parade, which was very, very fun. And then they hung up the banners all around the convention center, so you could visit them anytime during the week and you could check out what they thought was important to put in their banner. I was hoping for more opportunities to kind of share musical ideas with other UUs, but there weren't any really that came up where you could talk about what's your favorite music this day or your favorite composers. Many of the services made me really appreciate what we have going on here, very much. But there were two really special musicians that I would encourage you to look up online, listen to them, follow them. One of them is this Dr. Glenn Thomas Rideout, who led the GA in singing during the Spirit of the Living Tradition, Service of the Living Tradition. And I'll give you his bio, which I thought was really well written. Glenn, who uses all pronouns, is an artist, minister, teacher, lover, writer, gardener, and friend, born in Baltimore to a big, beautiful black family. He is director of Worship Arts Ministries for the people of the First Universalist Church of Minneapolis, and he teaches worship and liturgical design at Meadville Lombard. He's one to keep your eye on, Glenn Thomas Rideout. The other was Adam Podd, P-O-D-D. He rehearsed and led the GA band for the entire week. Amazing individual. I'd seen him online before when he had done videos during COVID for the, because he's the music director and choral director at the First Unitarian Church of Brooklyn, New York. So what a collaborative pianist. He is worth checking out online, Adam Podd. So those were some of my highlights. Now you can use your imagination and imagine that Michael Scott is now sitting down. So Michael Scott says, and he was a delegate, by the way, it was an honor to represent our congregation at the General Assembly. Kelly and I have been to GA many times in the past, but not since 2017. There were few more things exciting than a worship service with several thousand UUs in attendance. The Service of the Living Tradition, which honors professional religious leaders, is always a high point, and we're particularly looking forward to the chance to see our daughter, Erin, walk across the stage in a few years. And because it's been a while, some things have struck me that were different. First of all, the whole event was run in hybrid mode, so to accommodate Western time zones, nothing started before 11 a.m. There were no more than 4 or 5 events during any time slot, so people could accommodate different Zoom connections. There seemed to be more spectators than participants because of fewer events and seminars because of the hybrid mode. The UUA is pursuing an aggressive anti-racist and inclusion agenda. Sometimes I felt this was awkward, and sometimes it was hard. With regard to awkward, Speakers were asked this year to introduce themselves not only with pronouns, but with affinities and a physical description for the benefit of the visually impaired. So, for example, hi, I'm Michael Scott, an older, white, straight, cis guy. I'm kind of tall and gawky with a white beard, blonde hair, and wire-rimmed glasses. On the hard side, we seem to have concluded that traditional parliamentary procedure with structured arguments and posturing is steeped in white supremacy and needed to be reconceived or discarded. In keeping with this conclusion, most debate was moved online ahead of the GA. Floor discussions were severely time-limited, and votes were conducted online afterwards off-site. To anyone who had not participated in the early online discussions, it felt like you were giving an opportunity to agree with prearranged results. There were three important points of business. We had elections, and so our new president, the Reverend Sophia Beltancourt, is the first woman of color and the first openly queer person to serve as the president of the UUA. She's widely liked and respected, and I look forward to her time leading the UUA. The second business item was a rewrite of the Article 2 of the bylaws, which contains our well-known purposes and principles. The new version has been worked on for several years and has been many congregations have been actively involved in the rewriting process. You can find old versions and new versions online together with an enormous amount of commentary. The new version identifies love as core to the covenant, and it informs 6 key values: interdependence, pluralism, justice, transformation, generosity, and equity. Having been present when the first current Article 2 was adopted in 1984, I could recognize the need for a revise. The final item of business was the divestment and reparations proposal brought forth and meticulously researched by the youth and young adults. The UUA's pooled endowment, which includes both the nominational funds and local congregation funds, has already divested from companies producing fossil fuels. The proposal was to further divest from all companies provided support infrastructure to the fossil fuel industry and to convert those invested funds, about $14 million, into environmental reparations. Unlike previous elections and the Article 2 changes, this did not pass. It only received a third of the votes. Most delegates seemed to agree that divestment was a good idea, but feared that the reparations would force layoffs and program reductions amongst many UU congregations. Hard feelings about this issue will probably linger, along with questions about the extent to which Unitarian Universalists value the contributions and commitments of our younger members.
How close we can get. Yeah. How's that? Can you hear me? No. Boy. I may just have to hold it. We'll see. Sound better? Yes, I can hear. I wanted to mention that when Patti and I were talking about the hymns for the service, she decided to let me choose hymns that we heard a lot at GA. The theme was Faithfully Becoming. And so all the hymns we're singing today were ones that were heard a lot during various services. And I also wore my GA name tag to give GA flavor to our presentation today. The ribbons all came from booths at the exhibit hall, and they were really fun, although my favorite is the one that just says somebody. I just thought that was, I don't even know what table I picked it up at. So as Charlie mentioned, one of the main reasons we went to GA was because it was in Pittsburgh, his hometown, and it had been 25 years since we last attended GA. And I say we, but mostly it was me. I was on the local committee for the last time GA was in Rochester, which was in 1998. Brendan was 2 that year. So Charlie was mostly with him, and his parents came up also to attend GA and to visit with us. But I worked it, so I didn't get to do many of the programs, although I had an idea of, what happens. So it seemed like a really good combo. Plus, we did get a chance. We road tripped with Emma Barry, our office administrator, and that was super fun to go, just hop in my wheelchair access van and zoom down to Pittsburgh with Charlie as our bus driver. And she went as a part, and I think Kitty will mention is she's a member of the Association of Unitarian Universalist Administrators, and she's very active in their group. So she went and staffed their booth while we were there. Arriving to register was really amazing, going into the convention center to actually get our name tags, minus all the ribbons. Just moving into a space so full of people. The first thing was there had been what I felt like was a fairly gentle ask that people ahead of time, from the email communications, for people to wear masks to make it to make it accessible to everyone, which in this day and age right now seemed a little radical. We went in and it was a sea of masked people. And it honestly felt like we were being radically inclusive, and it felt very good actually to me. I know not everybody agrees with that, but it felt really nice. And so we basically masked. And of course, there was a sea of UUs, which was amazing. And from my perspective, a sea of people using scooters everywhere you looked. It was just a mob of people on scooters. What we had found, especially ahead of time, so GA has been using, General Assembly has been using an app for a few years that you download to your computer, to your phone, to navigate the programming at GA, which seems like a great idea, but you may, notice like Nikki mentioned that she had printed out the whole thing. And honestly, that was the only way to efficiently navigate the system, unfortunately. So I don't think their system works. If you have an app that's really hard to find things on and people have to print it out. So we didn't do that. Charlie spent a lot more time with it, so he actually found things to attend. And it was weird being there in person, and with most of the workshops being hybrid, not hybrid, most of the workshops were just online. We were sitting in our hotel attending workshops. That felt very weird. I'm not going to lie. That felt very odd. On the other hand, the workshops were very good, and we came back with some really good and interesting ideas from the ones we attended. The hybrid ones were, although sometimes buggy, and there was lag with the people online and difficulties with the subs and other accessibility features. I do know that. But unfortunately, important events were often hidden in the app. So we never, ever got to hear our new UUA president speak, and that makes me very sad. Saw the booth, never saw her there. I would have loved to hear her speak. I think maybe briefly at one of the services, but that was it. But I did feel like the in-person activities were pretty well organized. Disability services, of particular interest to me, although I didn't really utilize them, was right there as you entered. And that's where the sea of scooters came from. They had this fleet that people had, and there was a waiting list that people had reserved ahead of time. And they just had every scooter in Pittsburgh and around areas was there waiting for the folks that had signed up for them. And the large halls, although freezing, were very much set up. They weren't just set up they were set up with cut-ins for people using scooters or wheelchairs, but they had disability services handed out pillowcases that said disability services on them, and you could put one next to a chair and reserve that for a non-disabled friend to sit with you, so you could stay together. You weren't like segregated to disabled areas, which was really nice. You want to go to these services and be there with your friends. So I appreciated that very much. And they did a really good job with they had subs on screens, and all the words for hymns were up on screens. They had interpreters for all the main events, and I really appreciated that as well. The only problem was, unless you had gotten there early to reserve a seat up front in your area. Once people stood up during the services to sing, you couldn't see the words for the hymns, and that was kind of a problem. We changed Emma had a really good strategy for reserving up front seats, so that worked very well for us. And I really loved that they add descriptors that like Michael had mentioned. They were often very humorous. People really got into giving their personal descriptors, and I thought that was really fun. Since GA, you're there with so many UUs, it's a wonderful place to network. And I was excited to attend disability-focused workshops. That's of particular interest to me as I become more disabled. And the UUA seems to have two different disability advocacy groups, which should have been, I think, a red flag. There's equal access and uplift access. And I found that confusing. But there were intros to GA the first day. I went to the Disability Caucus, presented one, and it was very sparsely attended. It was run by Equal Access, which is described as an affinity group of the UUA. And it was not really, it was weird to be there and see a sea of scooters, but barely anybody attending any of the disability-related events. And I think that was an interesting thing. There was a workshop after the intro that was for disability advocates and allies, and it was run actually by the UUA has, oh, come on. There we go. The UUA has their group is called Uplift Access, and it's interesting. It's under the umbrella of the LGBTQ and Multicultural Ministries, which I found interesting. And they have a brand new coordinator, Gretchen Mon, and she ran the second workshop, and it was much more focused on disability justice and resourcing, helping congregations become more accessible. So I'm looking forward to watching her work and seeing what can be done, but I didn't find many opportunities to network in terms of disability justice, which was a disappointment. I'm just going to move to my highlights. I have to say the Service of the Living Tradition and watching the Reverend Vertus Robinson on stage as a preliminarily fellowshipped minister was very exciting. And then moments later, the Reverend Sherry Halliday Kwan, who's the lead minister at First Unitarian, was on stage as a final fellowship minister. And we just screamed ourselves silly, our group. It was wonderful. There was a presentation by Brian Broom, a queer Black man who is the author of a memoir called Punch Me Up to the Gods. And his talk was focused on why we should all be writing our memoirs. Whose lives can we change by writing our memoirs? And it was amazing. The Church of the Larger Fellowship put together a morning service featuring their ministry to incarcerated people, and it was presented in Spanish and English, and very uplifting and very informative about their work. As Mickey noticed or mentioned, there was a dinner organized by Reverend Lane May Reed Campbell for all of the First Universalist folks at GA. And we all got together and got to give some more hugs, as sabbatical had started, which was amazing. Visiting Emma, meeting her AUUA folks for the first time, people she'd worked with online, was really, really fun. For me, in the exhibit hall at one point, I was just sort of motoring around and got a casual wave from the Reverend Bill Sinkford, past UUA president, who was on a scooter, and sort of, the disabled people acknowledging each other as they went by. And then we had some really fun times visiting Pittsford folks, friends of Charlie's from high school, and Charlie's mom was laid to rest, her ashes in the memorial garden in the church he grew up in the North Hills. And so we visited their memorial garden while we were there, which was really lovely. We also visited the Heinz Museum that has the original set for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood preserved, and that was just a delight. I really, the theme, Faithfully Becoming, was what I found the vibe to be at GA this year. It was really amazing to be in the company of so many UUs. We are a spectrum of sometimes truly progressive and sometimes truly wrong-headed, yet people who need to share their opinions. And it was really easy to see all the ways that we as a religious movement are faithfully becoming. So thank you.
This is my experience at General Assembly by Emma Berry, our behind-the-scenes administrator. This year, I was fortunate to have my amazing employer, First Universalist, send me to the UUA's annual Unitarian Universalist Convention, General Assembly, for the first time. This was an event I had been interested in attending since I began first working here in 2019. Unfortunately, that year it was on the other side of the country in Washington State. So I decided to wait and hope it would be held in a somewhat closer location in 2020. And we all know what happened in 2020, 2021, and 2022. When I first heard the announcement that GA 2023 was going to be held in person and in nearby-ish Pittsburgh, I began to hope that First Universalist would consider sending me there as an attendee and representative, and maybe even a delegate if needed. Even though I didn't make it to GA in 2019, that year I joined the AUUA, the Association of Unitarian Universalist Administrators. This is a fantastic organization that supports UU staff in admin or office management roles. They have proved time and again to be an invaluable source of knowledge, feedback, and encouragement. This has been especially true as my role has changed and evolved, both before and during COVID. We bounce ideas off each other, can see if any other UU congregations have tried and succeeded or not in ideas we have, and get valuable and candid feedback concerning experiences with software and other tech we might be considering implementing. I would not be nearly as successful in my role at First Universalist without the support system we provide for each other in AUUA. Back to 2023. I began floating the idea of attending the 2023 GA to Rev. Elaine May Reed in the fall of 2022. They were supportive, and we agreed to revisit it after the craziness of the holidays. We began planning things more in the spring of 2023, and I was thrilled to get the go-ahead from Elaine May Reed and the board to attend. Before GA, the AUUA always holds an annual online meeting, like a mini GA, called Pro Days. They have workshops, presenters, a business meeting, and vote in new leadership for the coming year. I've attended this for the past couple years, but this year I was so excited to be letting folks know that I would be attending GA in person and would be able to finally meet some of them in person for the first time. I was also quite excited about volunteering at the AUUA table in the exhibition hall for part of the day for a couple of days. As I was researching how the heck to get down to Pittsburgh, as there appeared to be no quick and/or direct flights, trains, or buses there, my guardian angel swooped in the form of Lisa Gwinner and Charlie Kortzel. They generously offered to road trip it down there with me in the Beast. It was a smooth trip down, and I learned how Charlie had lived in Pittsburgh in his youth and knew the area quite well still. I'm always excited to travel somewhere with a local in the area. They always know the best spots to visit. We arrived the day before GA was meant to begin and grabbed a lovely dinner with Vertus LeVar Robinson in a fantastic restaurant that was converted from an old train station. My hotel was lovely and within an easy daily walk of the massive convention center where GA was being held. I was able to find my way over easily, and if I got lost, I could always spot the groups of folks who were attending to follow them. On the first day, I eagerly attended the in-person GA orientation, and it was so dang helpful and addressed more than a few questions I had and a bunch I had not even thought of yet. I then wandered around the convention hall, meeting folks and getting the lay of the land. I was able to sneak in a quick dinner with Lisa and Charlie before rushing back to the convention center to carry the First Universalist banner in the banner parade, the first time it had been held in person since 2019. That was such a great experience. I ended up chatting with several folks on either side of me, and even found the folks attending from First Unitarian and their banner. Thanks to Kelly and Michael Scott for finding the banner in the church, getting it to Pittsburgh, ironing it, and making sure it got to me before the banner parade began. It was a great experience, and I was happy to be the banner bearer for First Universalist. On the second day, I attended the 2023 featured speaker presentation by award-winning author Brian Broom, followed by a conversation with Reverend Michael J. Crumpler. Brian was an incredible speaker and shared excerpts from his recently released autobiography, Punch Me Up to the Gods, the contents of which run the gamut from heart-wrenching to hilarious. I ended up purchasing a copy and getting it signed by him. I was so moved by his presentation. His struggles as a Black man, a gay man, and a Black gay man covered bases I have no experience with. It was eye-opening. I highly suggest this book, as all the parts I have read so far have blown me away. Broom's writings brims with swagger and sensitivity, bringing an exquisite and fresh voice to ongoing cultural conversations about Blackness in America. Just an aside, I bought the book because of what she said about this. I then spent some time in the afternoon volunteering at the AUUA table, which was lovely. It was so great to finally meet some of the folks I've been emailing with for years. It was also a lot of fun to talk to folks in the exhibition hall about the AUUA and express how helpful they had been to me and what a valuable wealth of knowledge and support system they had to offer. We actually got a couple new members signed up that very afternoon. In the evening, I attended the service of the Living Tradition with Lisa and Charlie, and we cheered as Vertus and walked the stage, as well as Sherry Halliday-Kwan from First Unitarian. We made many joyful noises that day. On the third day, I also spent time in the morning at the AUUA table again, and then attended the Resist, Respond, Reimagine, a Side with Love rally in the afternoon. And that evening, I joined the AUU members for a group dinner at a fabulous restaurant that incorporated a learning kitchen for young adults and did a lot of good in the community. On the fourth and last day, I attended the Becoming a More Welcoming Class-Inclusive Faith Community, which was eye-opening. It also gave me a plethora of ideas on how to help First Universalists in the area, as I'd heard from many other congregation members and staff present who had struggled with this and were doing their best to be better. I look forward to sharing some of the tips and ideas gleaned from this communal workshop. Later that day, I attended the 2023 WHERE lecture by Amana Perry. She was a deeply moving speaker, and her words gave me hope. In between all these amazing talks, workshops, and presentations, I found my way up to the third floor of the convention center, which had rooms for some disabled folks and allies and LGBTQ plus folks. The LGBTQ plus room was the one I was in most often between events, as a quiet space to rest and recharge a bit, as well as attending some of the smaller workshops held there. During some downtime on Saturday, even I busted out my work laptop and set up a small workplace for myself. Oh my. It was a lovely space to just be, connect, and know you were surrounded by like-minded folks. That is also an accurate way to describe my entire experience at GA. There were so many friendly and welcoming folks who wanted to share their knowledge, experiences, and words of wisdom. I'm so grateful to First Universalist and everyone who made my journey and experience at GA a success. With the support of Lane Mayreed Campbell, Lisa Gwinner, Charlie Kortzel, and Kelly and Michael Scott, my journey and experience at GA turned out to be a fulfilling and insightful one. I am grateful for the opportunity and cannot wait for the next in-person GA event. Yeah. So will you please stand now for our closing hymn, which is Blue Boat Home, and it's in your tea hymnal. 1064. Please remain standing as we extinguish our chalice flame. Let us read together the words printed on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in until we are together again. As we close our service this morning, I invite you to place a hand over your heart. If you are joining us online, I invite you to turn your settings to gallery view and look upon the faces of those here with you. For those of us in the room, take a moment to look around at those here with you today.
Keep Your Dreams Alive by Hope Johnson. Listen, light the way, lend a hand, make decisions, commit, take risks, fail forward, build community, nurture meaningful relationships, be real.
Give thanks, invest in someone or something that you believe in. Live, love, dream. Dream big. Be transformed. Change the world. Lead.
And keep your dreams alive. And let the people of the church say, Amen.